Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kay Howes. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of the new NIHR Specialist Centre for Public Health based in Newcastle. I'm delighted to welcome you to our first webinar. I hope this is the first of many and would be interested in hearing from you on potential future topics. I'd like to start with some housekeeping. We'll be recording today's session, so if you don't want to appear in a recording, please turn your cameras off. We have dedicated time for questions and answers at 2 points in the session, so if you have questions, please put them in the chat or raise your hand to ask the channel. Next slide, please, Scott. Before we go into the detail of the fellowship programmes, I'd like to briefly introduce you to the RSS Specialist Centre for Public Health. The centre was commissioned by NIHR as part of a significant investment in public health research. We started in October last year and are a national centre provided by Newcastle University and Southampton University. We aim to support public health research outside the NHS by providing researchers at all stages of their career with advice on research design and funding, working to support consistency in research ethics and governance, and provide support for training and career progression. In Newcastle, we have an additional focus on providing support and resources for local authorities to increase their capacity and capability to carry out public health research, and we'll be providing more information on that over the next few months as we develop our support. Next slide, please, Scott. I'd also like to briefly introduce you to the Specialist Centre for Social Care. This was commissioned at the same time as a public health centre, and it's based at Lancaster University. Like our centre, this is a particular emphasis on supporting practitioners to carry out social care research in a range of settings and provides advice, support and access to expertise to do so. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Scott Lloyd. Scott's an advanced public health practitioner in South Tees, and he's a key partner in our specialist centre based in Newcastle. Scott will lead today's session.
Thank you, Kay, and welcome everyone. So I just want to start with acknowledgements and content. So these slides were originally created by Dr. Mal Palin at the NIHR Academy. Colleagues that do get involved in the local authority academic fellowship programme will get to know Mal very well. He is our kind of contact and our pillar of strength of the NIHR. So we're going to talk about what is the NIHR very briefly. We're going to talk about the local authority academic fellowship programme, what support's available for you, and we will do some questions and attempted answers. So first of all, we're going to introduce the speakers. So in terms of myself, I've got 20 years experience working in public health policy and practice, and I've always had this genuine interest in research as a means of improving what we do. Over that time, I've got about 15 journal papers, and that's not necessarily been me doing the research. That's been me kind of making the research happen in the real world. So connecting academic colleagues into communities, into workplaces, and just kind of managing and making the research relevant for our local communities. In terms of my own journey, so I did a pre-doc, a PLAF, between September 21 and August 23. I'm now on a Spark, you'll get to know all these acronyms as we go through. I'm now on a short placement award with the NIHR Policy Research Unit for Obesity, and I've applied to do a DLAF, a doctoral fellowship, and I hope, if that's awarded, to start that on the 1st of September 24. And my research interest is what's advertised in bus shelters and what local authorities can do about that. That photo on the right hand side is research from my PLAF, and you can see me taking the photo of that Big Mac in the background. Right, I will pass over to Bryony.
Hi, Scott. Thank you very much for that. So I'm currently on the doctoral local fellowship programme. I've worked in public health as a public health specialist since 2007. And I was on the first cohort of the doctoral fellowship programme. So although it says pre-DLAF, it wasn't a PLAF. So I went straight into the DLAF. I'd already done some research within the local authority. So as part of my master's, I did an evaluation of the regional rollout of the food partnership programme. And I also was part of a 4-year study weighing and measuring children to find out an intervention point. So we always, like Scott, I think we've all kind of got that genuine interest to answer questions and do innovative work. I was very privileged to kind of lead on a community response to COVID. And what I found there was really inspiring in terms of the community action. Communities came together and came up with innovative solutions. And that kind of led me to the question, when we've got the climate emergency, how can we create that similar community action? And that was the start of my question. And then the DLAF came along, and I put in an application and was successful. The fellowship has been absolutely amazing in opening opportunities and collaborations. It's as big as you want it to be, and as your imagination can capture. I've done presentations at various conferences. I have a team of co-researchers, and we've done co-presentations at various conferences. I've had a publication in Perspectives of Public Health. I've had lots of opportunities to lecture at the University of Salford, both on the apprenticeship programme and also on the master's programme. Presentations, we've developed a partnership with researchers in Uganda, but also it's really key about bringing that expertise back into the local authority. So I've been doing research skills webinars, and I'm also now a carbon literacy trainer. So obviously with climate change, I'm very interested in climate change and kind of want to bring that up in the agenda. So really there are lots of opportunities. It's very exciting. And if you've got a burning question to answer, then I really would encourage you to apply. Next.
Faye, please.
Hi everyone, my name's Faye. So I've come from a slightly different background. I'm a virtual school head teacher. Nobody knows what that is. Do not worry. Essentially, I'm responsible for the children in care, educational outcomes. So I've come to this as a teacher without any sort of research background. I had a fine art degree, so you can imagine how useful that might be. But what I did have, I think as other people have spoken about, is that interest, and my interest in research actually grew from frustration with the way that local authorities, particularly in children's social care, can use data, but drowning in data, but actually not using that really well to tell stories about our children's experiences through care. So with that in mind, I applied for the PLAF, and I think it's really important that I say I failed. I did not get that first PLAF. Devastated at the time, but it turned out to be the most helpful step in my journey, because what I got from the NIHR was really, really helpful feedback that allowed me to sort of then step into my research journey. So response to that, I had an LA Spark, as Scott was saying. I did a link with Kent, Surrey and Sussex ARC, the research community, and with Foundations, what works with children's social care, which then fed into my successful PLAF application, which I am currently doing 0.5 of the week, part-time. It's really difficult to balance work and study, but it's also really important that I'm able to weave the two together, and that's really helpful. So it's allowed me to be the research lead for the National Association of Virtual School Head Teachers, present at conferences, broaden that network. I'm on the Spark selection panel now, which is really, really helpful to see how things are from the other side. So my advice for anyone thinking of applying is don't be dissuaded if you don't get there first time. It is a journey, and it's really about how it makes you into a practitioner researcher. It's a great journey to be on. Thanks very much.
NIHR.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, good morning, everybody. So my name's Hamera Sultan. I am a consultant in public health, currently working in Birmingham City Council. I've been one since 2014, and prior to that, I was a specialist registrar since 2009. So I've always been interested in academic work. I'm a bit of a geek. I think we can say that and be proud of it on this call. Yeah, I've got a thumbs up from Scott and a big smile from Bryony. So and Faye. So I've always wanted to do a PhD, and just through my MPH, I fell in love with logistic regression. Again, big geek, and I thought, you know what, I would love to do more kind of academic work. Through my training, I managed to do 3 publications as well. And I have previously applied for 3 PhD opportunities, but it wasn't meant to be. For whatever reason, I got stuck at the last hurdle, and then I got, offered a consultant post, and then I started a family and so forth. But anyway, fast forward, I was working at Birmingham City Council in a role around leading our Future Parks programme, which is all around embedding the value of nature. And this really, really ignited a passion that I never knew I had for green spaces and parks. And I thought, when the project came to an end, I didn't want to stop there working on it. So I got a call from one of my old MPH lecturers, Professor Emma Frew, and said, "Have you heard about the PLAF?" And I said, "No idea. Sounds like a curry, to be honest." But anyway, she said, "Well, there's 3 weeks until the submission deadline, and I think you should go for it, and I'll help you write your application." And I submitted an application within, like a 3-week period, to do this pre-local authority fellowship, which was all about helping me build my research interest around green spaces. So I've been doing a bit like Faye, doing that half time. I spend 2.5 days a week on my PLAF and 2.5 days with a public health consultant. Really, really enjoyed my PLAF. It's been an amazing opportunity. I've done courses in Harvard, Kennedy School. Haven't gone there because they realised that they can make more money, I think, by doing online. I've done MSc modules in health economics. I've published a journal, added to my research base, and I've been to kind of an international conference which was held in London. So, and I've just, got loads and loads of more global connections, which wouldn't have been possible without this. Now I've just submitted my application for a DLAF. There's my PhD title. How can local authorities use health economics, evidence and adaptive leadership to inform investment in parks? So I'm awaiting now, with all fingers crossed to see what happens with the next steps. And just one kind of quick word of advice: anybody vaguely interested in academic work, you have nothing to lose by going for one of these fellowships. It's been one of the best, after becoming a mum, one of the best experiences of my life, I would say. So there we go. Thanks, everyone.
Rachel.
Thank you. Morning, everybody. So my name's Rachel Murphy. I'm a social worker. I work with North Yorkshire Council. So I previously, prior to that, worked in various criminal justice settings, but then went to mainstream community mental health social work. Totally love to learn, but also love practice as well. So this is, where the local authority fellowships really, come into, well, they're just golden, really. They help bridge the gap between research and practice, which is what I absolutely love. So I was on the first cohort of PLAF fellowships back in 2021. And my research was looking at linking my criminal justice interest with the mental health social work. I was interested in how mental health services can better support adults who are non-offenders but have sexual interest in children, to help prevent suicide, poor mental health, and obviously offending against children. So that was my area of interest. I completed a postgrad certificate in research in social care, and I did a pilot study during the PLAF, which is just currently pending publication. Because it's quite a niche area of research, there's not a lot of people researching it. So I used the time during there to make an awful lot of connections globally with the people that are interested in this and are currently researching it. And I managed to work on my DLAF application, which was successful. There was a year in between the timeframes from the PLAF to the DLAF, and I was very fortunate. The stars aligned for me, and I managed to secure some funding, some external funding from universities for that year, in which I could go back to health and adult services as continuing, as a service manager role that I was in, but as a temporary research lead. So bringing some of the skills and experience I'd got from the PLAF back to the council. During that time, I developed a research governance framework. We developed our research working group, launched a journal club, and I was involved in supporting a lot of research development across the directorate and supporting other people, other practitioners, to take up opportunities. I was also a part of a bid writing team for health determinants research collaboration, which is another investment now coming to local authorities, and that bid was successful. So we've actually now got 5 years further funding to help develop the research infrastructure in our council. So it was a very, very good year. That was well spent. Since starting the DLAF, which started in September, I'm now on a fully funded PhD. I've got supervisors at the University of Central Lancashire, but also Nottingham Trent, and that as well as I'm going on an overseas trip to Canada during the PhD. That sort of developed through my PLAF, making those global connections and finding out who was active and where the best places were to learn about this. And my research ultimately is intended to inform mental health practice and risk management. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to quickly fly through some slides. So the first question I just want to put, the first thing I want to answer is, are people on this call eligible for what we're talking about? And the simple answer is probably yes. Okay, so as you've already heard, the National Institute for Health and Care Research is investing increasing amounts of funding into supporting research in local government settings. And the question they're asking is, in terms of funding this research, is does it contribute to a health and social care outcome? Near enough everything that anybody does in a local authority contributes to a health or social care outcome in some way. So our bin collectors, they are contributing to a public health outcome. That middle one there, you've already heard from Faye, who's a school teacher. That's supposed to be what is a school teacher. On the right-hand side, that's a Google image that I found about somebody apparently successfully getting a job. Colleagues that work in economic regen, job growth, etc., they are contributing to a public health outcome. Just to emphasise that, so on the right-hand side, if the bins don't get emptied, this is what happens. That is a public health outcome. On the right-hand side, the link between economic inactivity and health, very clear. So economic growth contributes to public health and social outcomes. So there is a whole range of fellowships across the academy, the NIHR Academy, which is a specific part of the NIHR to develop and build research capacity. Many of these programs have been in place for years, but the local authority one, the bit in blue there, is what we're talking about today. And that's newer. Just to say as well, even though we work in local authority, we are actually eligible for the other bits as well, or some of the other bits at least. So the remit for personal awards, I'm not going to major on this one, but we're talking about applied health or social care research or things that contribute to a health or social care outcome. Just very quickly, to pick another one out from there, Middlesbrough Council has a farm. So the NIHR doesn't support basic research involving animals, so we couldn't do anything at the farm, but people working at the farm as kind of using the farm to improve health or social care outcomes could apply, as long as the research is actually on the animals themselves. So there is this increasing importance being placed on developing practitioner academics. There's a whole variety of reasons why they're doing that. Certainly for employers, it can help retain staff in a competitive market. It can improve staff morale and help us to innovate, can transform services, and organisations who are research active achieve better outcomes. So moving on to the fellowship programme itself. So this is open to colleagues across local authority, excluding those who are medically or dentally qualified, because there's other programmes for them. The awards must be hosted by a partnership of a local authority or a service and a higher education institute, a university. And just to be clear, in terms of colleagues who are here from organisations wider than local authorities, so the eligibility is people who have a contract of employment who work for either a local authority, a provider of local authority commission services, or a not-for-profit organisation that provides services on behalf of a local authority or otherwise supports the local authority in meeting its objectives. So in terms of that last one, you know, all the VCS partners in where I work, South Tees, colleagues that work there are eligible. People who work in schools are eligible. People who work in housing associations, for me, are eligible. So I think, as I said earlier, the automatic assumption that everyone's here today should be is that you are likely eligible for this programme. So in terms of the offer, you've heard a lot about, and this is where you're going to get to know the acronyms. So pre-doctoral local authority fellowship, PLAF. There's actually two different PLAFs. You've got the standard PLAF and the PLAF bridge. So in both instances, this is about developing you, moving you towards, allowing you to do the scoping work to move towards your doctoral fellowship application. Standard DLAF, you are doing that either full-time over 12 months or part-time over 24 or 30 months. These fellowships fully cover your salary whilst you're doing your research, okay? Allowing your organisation to backfill if they shall choose to do so. It also, in terms of the standard PLAF, provides £5,000 towards master's level training, or if you can justify it, you can actually apply for more than the £5,000 to do a full master's. I did that. I did my full MPH as part of my PLAF. And then there's also £1,000 for conference and up to £1,000 for public involvement as well. The bridge is similar, it's just less. It's for those who are not necessarily needing a full standard PLAF. It is for those who are closer and just need a bit of support to get to the point where they're ready to do their DLAF. So it's just smaller in terms of the scope because you are closer to that. And in terms of applications, at the moment, the windows are annual, and the PLAF, the reason why we're doing this today is because the window for PLAFs has just opened. So it opened on the 9th, which was earlier this week, and it closes on the 28th of March. The link is there. Very important to get on there and read the guidance notes, which I'll talk about later. You've also already heard about the doctoral fellowship. So again, I think the clue's in the title here. This is a fully funded doctoral fellowship for colleagues in local authority or supporting services or charities, etc. Full-time 3 years with part-time options. Again, this completely fully covers your salary and your research costs whilst you are undertaking your research. And you're actually, with the DLAF, you are given 20% of your award time is given back to your employer to support you in your practice role, so you don't lose those skills and links and networks. The window for this launches annually in September. The closing date last year was the 7th of December. It's etched in my mind because I was obviously applying for that. I'm not going to talk a lot about the ALAF. That's a new acronym. They've only just had wave one of that this year, but this is essentially an award for colleagues in local government who already have, or those wider settings, sorry, who already have a doctorate. This is providing funding between 2 to 5 years for you to then have your salary covered, your research covered, for you to develop your own independent programme of research. The Spark Award is there for colleagues to undertake a short placement, which is of the value of up to £15,000, usually within a placement within part of the NIHR. So as I said, my Spark, which I'm at the moment, is with the NIHR Policy Research Unit for Obesity. It's an amazing opportunity again. There's no minimum or maximum duration, so it can be as short as 2 to 3 weeks or as long as 4 to 5 months. Mine is 6 months long, I think. And the annual application window for that is September and closes November. This one is very new as well. I've been discussing with the Academy for a while that we have a number of colleagues in local government who are interested in this, but they're not even anywhere near doing a pre-doc. So I've been actually arguing for a need for a pre-doc, if that makes sense. So this new one, from the Pre-Application Support Fund, is there to enable colleagues to have a contribution of their salary bought out to allow you to have the necessary time to prepare your application. They've just had round one of this, closed on the 30th of November. I don't know if they've awarded those yet. It'd be useful actually to have conversations once we know more about this scheme with people who've been awarded, etc. But at this point, they've only just had round one. There is 3 application windows for this year, which I think is useful, and round 2 will likely have a advert date to the 23rd of January. So I predict it would close in March, April time, and they're looking to fund people from January onwards, which might be useful, for example, if colleagues wanted to apply for a pre-doc in 2025, it could potentially fund some of your time to build towards that. You might think, well, this is going to be highly competitive and what's the point? But just listen to what Faye said, try and take that feedback on board. But actually, the success rates are quite high. So if you look at round one, which what myself and Rachel were part of, and maybe some of the others, 15 out of 18 colleagues were funded. So that's quite a high kind of success rate. Even round three, 9 out of 17 isn't bad. That's still a 50% hit rate. And then the importance, as Faye was saying, of getting that feedback and going back and improving. Some of these applicants actually in round three were funded, because you can see there that they've got in round three that there's actually 3 people that got bridging support when only 2 applied. What they've done there is move some of the colleagues who applied for full support into the bridges. So it isn't actually that 9 out of 17 were the success rate is probably higher than it seems there. But I think the general message is that the success rate is really quite high compared to other things that you might consider that we've applied for in the past. DLAFs, again, the application, the success rate is fairly healthy. Decent numbers being shortlisted then awarded, but I guess that this is going to increase in future years. There's about 70 plus of us now in the Spark, PLAF, DLAF, ALAF community. It's just we're all on that journey towards those the DLAF. So I think that's going to increase as we go forward in terms of numbers applying and awarded and shortlisted and awarded. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to hand over to Selena, and she's going to manage this first question and answer session.
Hi everyone, and thanks, Scott. I suppose I should introduce myself quickly. So I'm Selena McCarthy. I recently joined Kay and her team working for the Specialist Centre for Public Health based at Newcastle University. Just to say, we're so thrilled to have so many people here today. So thank you for taking the time. Really good to have you here. In terms of the Q&A, I think how we're going to run it, I know there's a few already in the chat, so we'll get to that. And I think, Scott, you're going to manage the chat questions, which is fab. In terms of this section, we're just really going to focus on the information you've heard so far. In terms of how you go about completing applications, that's going to follow in due course. If you don't mind, just sort of raise your hand if you'd like to verbally ask a chat. And when you do, if you don't mind just stating your name, kind of your job role and your organisation that you work for, that'd be really helpful. And then if you don't mind, just lowering your hand after, just so we can keep tabs on the order of questions. Scott, do you want to go with the chat questions first? And that gives everyone time to have a little think. And if they'd like to ask a question verbally, we can go that way.
Just trying to scan the questions straight away. So
I know there are a few, yes. While you do that, Scott, actually, I've just seen that Layla, I think you've raised your hand there. If you'd like to go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, I switched my camera on. I don't know why it's not working. I just wanted to ask quickly, you talked a lot about PLAF and the fact that people gain kind of research experience doing PLAF. However, my aim is to apply for DLAF because I've already done a master's in Bristol, and I'm quite confident that I can, lead a PhD, or basically study a PhD degree. And whereas, however, my point is, in the master's degree, obviously I did my dissertation and I came up with a research question, and now that research question is quite relevant to my work and actually to the whole climate of well-being at work, etc. So I'm thinking, simply because not doing a PLAF, does it decrease my chance of being accepted in DLAF, or the fact that I'm having a good support from good university and supervisory team, that's going to kind of, neutralize that effect?
I don't mind answering that partly, Layla. So I obviously went straight into the DLAF for 2 reasons. I'd done a master's, similar to yourself, and also I'd missed the deadline for the PLAF, so it was the first round. So my experience is that it was 10 plus years since I'd done my masters. So to be honest, I feel like particularly in that first year I was in catch up and very rusty. So it depends how long it is since you've done your masters and whether your masters modules are kind of equipping you to do this new research question. You see, I'm doing quite a lot of qualitative stuff and action research, which I didn't do in my Masters in Public Health Nutrition. So I found it quite challenging. And although I've coped, and the PH journey is challenging anyway, because you're always coming up with new things. That's just part of the. So I suppose it's a question of how confident you feel about your research skills, and if there's been a big gap between your masters and applying for the PhD. And also, I think ideally, if I'd have done the PLAF, I could have done like a bit of a pilot study, which might have strengthened my application. So in retrospect, to make the journey easier for myself, I would have done the PLAF. However, I didn't, and I am surviving and I'm really enjoying it. So I hope that might help. I don't know if you've got any further questions on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you both. I think, is it Liza? Am I saying that right? You've got your hand raised.
I pronounce it Lisa. I know a lot of people say Liza, but I don't mind really. Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Well, I am aiming to put an application for pre-lap. So I think the application going to come out within a couple of weeks. So I am trying, my aim is to put an application for this year and with a BE to start from September. I have been out of education for a while. I do have a master's, but still, I'm not been in a proper formal education system for a while. So that's the reason I'm trying to, go back to the mood and build up the theme. And I do like being at university environment. So I am aiming for DLAP before I apply for pre-lab before I apply for DLAP. So one question is that when I was looking at the university, this university full fee is quite higher than what the NIHR is offering. So do we need to top up the fee for, or how does it work?
I'm happy to take that one if that's okay. You can put, if you can justify the costs of the full master's fee, you can apply for that. It's not the usual path, but certainly it's what I did, and I got the full fee. But I had to really demonstrate that the course that I needed to do was relevant not just to my field of study, but to the wider NIHR priorities and how it was going to sort of feed back into the local authority. So it's a bit of an open-ended one, I think. There's scope to do it, but I'd hesitate to say it's normal practice, it will be fine. Does that make sense? It's such a personal award. It really is about where your needs are, justifying that training package and making sure that it aligns with the priorities.
Okay.
Can I just add to that as well, Lisa?
Thank you.
Have you got a relationship with an academic institution already?
I have approached a few universities, yes, and all of them are quite excited to have me, really, which is really positive, and I found really encouraging. I came from Birmingham, and Birmingham was is my university. I had my both degree from Birmingham, but unfortunately, I can't do the doctorate in Birmingham because they haven't got a supervisor, which is, specialized in my area. I'm looking at mental health, which is quite similar as Rachel was saying, Rachel Murphy. Yeah, so it's quite similar on her research. My background is mental health, and currently Birmingham hasn't. But I am approaching to Warwick University at the moment, and they're happy to support me.
I would definitely have a conversation with them, Lisa. I'm sorry, sorry.
It is Lisa, you're right.
Definitely have a conversation with them. Just, I mean, my own experience, I've already got a master's as part of my, well, before my public health training, but I was able to go on various modules and so forth at no charge at all. Yes, I wasn't being assessed, but I'd say it's definitely worth having the conversation and, and asking the question. So this is an investment in you as well from the university's perspective. So so yeah, I would definitely have that conversation with them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. So the other part of the question I wanted to ask, really, obviously, when I was looking at the system online, there was no application open, and so I don't know how the actual application look like. So I am a bit, it is a bit daunting not knowing that what information is required or how I'm going to put a plan forward for the training. So is any of the colleagues would like to share some of their experience or happy to give me some support on that area?
I'll come in if that's all right. So the application window is open now, so you should be able to access the form now and have a look through it. There is also really comprehensive guidance. When you go onto the NIHR webpage, there's a link to the PLAF round 4 guidance. What I actually did, I just printed that out and kept it next to me while I was going through the form, doing the online application. I would, I mean, I know we'll come to this anyway, but have a look at it as soon as possible, because there's not just bits for you to complete, there's bits for other people to complete. So when you have your academic supervisor, they need to come on the system and add a bit. Your manager at work needs to add a bit. So there's quite a lot to work through. So there is a couple of months to work on it if you start it now. But yeah, you need to be, like Humera said, linking in with your academic team as soon as possible, because they can help you develop your training programme. So it might be that you do the full MA and you justify that, or it might be that when you speak to them about where you're at academically and professionally, this is what happened with me, they sort of suggest alternatives to a full MA. So you can you're not just on your own doing it. Once you've identified who your supervisors are going to be, they can help guide that as well. One of the first things it asks on the form is about research experience and publications, which I instantly found off-putting when I was applying for my PLAF, because I thought I haven't got any and I haven't got any publications. But don't be put off by that, because the NIHR understands that we're very sort of early career researchers. With the sort of research experience, the way that I did it was think about, the bits that I did do at uni, but also a lot of my practice-based experience that wouldn't necessarily fit with your, standard research like a project, but getting service user feedback to then inform services or doing online audits and things like that. So don't be put off by those first couple of questions on the form. Just sort of think a little bit outside of the box if you're not got a research background, about how your practice sort of links and fits with that idea of research. But yeah, I'd have a good look now because it is open now.
Is it open? Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I could have a look at it. Yeah. Did you say, Rachel, that you did full MA?
I didn't. No, I did a postgrad certificate in research in social care. So that was a part-time course, but then I did extra modules on top of that, which enabled me to do a pilot study. And it also, not being a full-time MA, it freed me up to do a lot more connecting and networking about my research topic, and things like that, which for my specific project was really, really useful. But it's completely sort of bespoke and individual to each applicant. So it just depends where you're at and what will work for you.
I am aiming to go in full MA. And I really don't know whether do I need any other training top of it. I really don't know how to make a plan for that.
Well, I'd have a think if it's a full-time MA and you're doing the PLAF full time. Think about sort of how much time you might have for extra things, because I would think that would be quite time intensive. But part of the application, you do need to consider professional development as well within your application. So how you'll develop as a practitioner researcher for the benefit of the local authority. So, for example, for me, I did like a leadership course as well, and a few, kept in touch with work in terms of like going to meetings and forums and training opportunities like that. So it totally depends on where you are and what your experience is. But a full MA would give you, in terms of academic stuff, it'd give you all the academic side, and you'd be able to do a project within that. If that suits you, go for that. But for me, it worked better just sort of hand-picking modules a little bit more and doing the postgrad certificate.
Right.
Selena, can I ask a question from the chat, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Scott. Thank you.
There's a number of colleagues asking, how do you best identify a university partner?
Can I ask a panel member to take that?
Yeah, I can
question,
have a go.
please?
I can start us off, Selena. So for those, I'd say a starting point is most local authority, well, especially public health teams, and if you're not connected into your public health team within your local authority, slightly biased here, but we're quite a good team to be connected to. The public health teams most likely will have connections to their local academic institutions. Another option is, if you've already done a master's, even if it's not necessarily in the area that you're now interested in terms of your intended PLAF or DLAF, you're looking for kind of just a foot in the door, really. I mean, I was quite lucky in that a lecturer that I had for my master's nearly 15 years ago now, I'm still in touch with her, and she literally just kind of pick up the phone to kind of say to me, have you thought, would you be interested in doing this, because we've kept that relationship going, and it just so happens that as well my research interests very much fit into kind of hers as well. So it was kind of, I don't think it was necessarily designed, it just kind of fell into place, which I appreciate isn't always helpful if you haven't got kind of that kind of relationship already existing. But if you're starting from scratch, that would be my advice, is to probably go and speak to your public health team and see what links they have already.
Can I add to that as well? If you're in social care, talk to your principal social worker. They can be really helpful sources of information. If you're in a niche area, don't be afraid to read papers and contact the authors. Certainly that's how I did it, because it is sort of a niche area within a niche area that I'm looking at. And it's actually really good practice to approach professors and researchers to talk about their work and try and get a bit of an understanding. If they're teaching at a particular institution that's viable for you, that becomes a really interesting piece of work in itself, justifying why that institution is the right one. So yeah, contact people blind and explain your position, because I've found that you get a lot back from that.
Thank you both so much. I'm just mindful of the chat, and there's a few more hands raised. So actually going in the order, Lynn, I think you had your hand up initially, it went down, it came back. So staying true to the order. I've got Lynn, then Marion, Rashid, apologies if I'm not saying that correctly, and then Anne Ramsden. If you don't mind just introducing yourselves, just a reminder, your job role in your organisation, that would be great. So I'll hand over to Lynn, please. See if Lynn's still. That's okay. I'll move on then. So I think Marion, I think you were next. Thank you for bearing with us. Over to you. I think Marion may have left or stepped away. So over to Rashid. Again, apologies if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. Okay, moving down the list then. Anne Ramsden. Are you there? Would you like to ask your question?
I am here.
Thank you, Anne.
Anne Ramsden. I'm from Rosalie Riley Foundation in Wakefield, West Yorkshire. You were saying earlier about going to your manager. So I'm manager of my organisation. So where would I go if, you know, for a manager to feed into it? You know, the application form. They were saying about a manager, you know, you need information from your manager, but I am the manager, so, and I'm the founder. So we're an independent organisation, we work a lot with social care, so people on social services and plans. But so where would I go for my manager to feed into it? You know,
I think I think you need to ask Mal that one, because I think that's a fair point. So if you were the chief executive of a local authority applying, who would you get to sign that off, for example? And you're asking the same question. There's nobody else above you as such. So I think you need
Hello,
to,
can you listen me?
I think you need to ask Mal that question, Anne. Okay, and Mal's email address is at the end of the slides.
Hi.
Sorry, Anne. It may be that you know, if you have a board that you have you know, oversight from, or if you can have a DCS link to the local authority, it might be worth asking Mal if that would take the place of the manager in your position.
Right, yeah, because I've got board, and a lot of my boarders, you know, like have doctorates themselves.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if they'd be, you know, suitable because they're not daily practice with me. So, but yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. And actually, Mal's email is at the end of the slide deck as well, which will be circulating. So you'll have those as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Marion, I'm going to come back to you. I think you just stepped out the room before, so we moved on. But back to you if you have your question. Thank you.
I'm Tahir Rashid. Can you?
Just a minute. Sorry, Rashid. I'm here now, so I had to take a call. It was a bit of an urgent thing, so sorry about that. Because I have been going through I am going to be applying for an ALAF, which I know is the less of the focus of this discussion today. But one of the things that I have realized from going through all the requirements that there's a kind of partnership element to the application as well. And the form would suggest there's quite a restriction around the number of people that you can, organizations that possibly are within that partnership, in terms of you have your host university, you have the organization that I'm working for, which is Birmingham City Council, and then you might have another one, and possibly international in terms of the partnership as well. Now, the work that I'm doing, because I have been in public health for so long, it's untrue. I am a kind of grey-haired, advanced in years person. And I have so many connections already, and it's how do you kind of fulfill the requirements, which when you've got boxes that are quite constraining in their in the way that you can fill them in. So that was my question.
I think you just have to be creative, Marion. So I agree with what you're saying. So you have got kind of, if I speak about a DLAF, you've got 3 academic supervisors and a career mentor, but there was a section on collaborations. But yeah, you are right. I think it's just about and there's obviously word counts as well. So it's about being creative, which is a challenge, and also writing concisely, which is a challenge and a skill that maybe is worth demonstrating.
Okay, so there isn't no definitive answer. You just being creative is quite a benefit, which I'm pretty creative in the way I operate anyway. So that's okay. With that in mind, I will continue on my kind of, and I was also wondering if people should realize that the research support service is very helpful. And if you're making applications, that I've been working with two people in Birmingham around my application, and I would say if you've got any concerns, they're also incredibly helpful. And I've also spoken to Mal as well. So there's a few more people that you might kind of, especially around the question around academic support and where you might get ideas for who would be a worthwhile person to talk to.
Thank you, Marion. Rashid, I think you were next in line for your question, if you'd like to go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, my questions are a little bit simple. You might have already answered, and I might be missed them. I apologize for that. I work for Bradford Council full-time employment, and I have already master degree in human development. I have a couple of very simple questions. The first one is like, I'm in full-time employment. Will I be studying this with the employment as a part-time, or it would be kind of placement? I would have to leave my job and then doing this. That is the first question. And the second is like, is the funding will be on the top of our salary? Like if I'm working, whatever I'm getting from my job, will this funding be on the top of this? And my last question is, I have no background of this area. Shall I start with the pre one or start from straight from the doctorate? So how do you advise to me, please?
I'm happy to start us off.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you.
So just in terms of, it took me a while to get my head around the whole kind of governance and around kind of these local authority fellowships. But you absolutely stay employed by your organisation. What the funding does, so you don't, it pays to almost release you from your current job. You still hold your job title, but the important thing is that the funding releases you from having to do the job that you're doing. That could be like myself and Faye, where we're half time. So what the PLAF has done for us is it has released us from our job for half of the week. Our funding has come from somewhere else. Our employer still has funding in their own budget half time if they wanted to employ somebody else to cover the bit of my job or our jobs that we're not doing at the moment. So, and in terms of what funding you actually ask for in the application, it is at the salary that you're currently paid. So you have to provide evidence of that. Your finance team have to sign off and say yes. You know, for instance, I could have put in my chief exec's salary for BCC, which obviously I'm not recommending anybody do that, but there is a, because I got being recorded as well, especially given we're in a financial situation in Birmingham right now. Anyway, moving on swiftly. You know, it is very much about, because the whole point of these fellowships as well is to keep you in the local authority. But what NIHR want is to see kind of a cohort of people working in local authorities that are research, evaluation, kind of impact minded, so that we can change our organisation's thinking. Does that help, Rashid?
Yeah, I think is you answered about 50% of my question. Again, like the job what I'm doing, I'm the only one on the job. Yeah, I already when I did my degree, I did on part time, so they were releasing me for like on daily basis for a couple of hours, and then 1 hour or 2 hour could be twice in a week. So I was going, doing my study and come back. That's how we work within the organization. So, for example, if like by starting this education, will be the same principle followed, or I need to leave some part of my job and then.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Rashid. I just wanted to say it's really up to you to discuss with your employer what the best model is. I found it really helpful to think about the NIHR with the salary funding. They pay that to the local authority. So effectively, they give the local authority enough for another you, whether that's another half a you or another whole you. So you are studying full time and they employ somebody else full time to do your job. That's within your gift to decide in conversation with your local authority. So you've kind of got to meet your needs and their needs and the study needs at the same time. So there's no prescribed way to do it other than it takes place over the 24 months or the 30 months or full time, 12 months. But it's helpful to think of the money coming to the local authority to create another post to replace you. Does that make sense?
I don't know if we've lost you, Rashid. I was just going to add its second point. Yeah, so just following on from Faye, it is about negotiating and having that conversation with your employer, because your employer's got to support that application. So they've got to say, can we reasonably backfill for you to be released to do that? So that's the conversation you've got to have with them. And you also, I think you asked about whether whether you go straight to the you've just finished something. I don't know if you've just finished your master's, whether you just go straight to the DLAF or you do a PLAF. And I think, again, it's just about justifying your choices. Do you feel you've got the right skills, the right research skills? Do you feel like you could generate that research question and have the experience to complete a DLAF? Or do you think you need more support and development time to create that application? And that's going to be very specific to you. I just think of the end point when you sat in front of that panel. Can you justify what you've put in your application, the funding, the journey, where you've come from, and where you want to get to in that research journey? What do you want to do afterwards? So it is difficult to answer those, but I would say talk to as many people as possible and think about all the different permutations. It's an amazing opportunity to develop you, but you are within an organization, so also think about how you can develop that research capacity within the organization and make sure you put that into your application as well. So it is a personal answer. You ask yourself, am I ready to complete a DLAF? Have I got the right skills from what I've done previously? If I'm confident, go ahead. If you think you need more time to develop it, then do the PLAF.
Could I just add on to that as well? I think it's a really good point. They do cover any incremental salary rises over the course of the time you'll be studying as well. So if you are due to have incremental rises based on performance management or not, please do put that in as part of your application for your funding, because the NIHR absolutely includes that in their funding model.
And your finance team can help with that in your organisation. They can help you with the budget section of your form.
Thank you all. Rashid, does that answer your questions for now? Okay, I'm just going to move on. Lynn, I see your hand is up. If you'd like to take the floor with your question, please. Thank you. I'm not sure if we're having some technical difficulties there. Scott, I'm just wondering, there's no other hands up at the moment while we wait for Lynn to return. Oh, that's fine. I see. I can't unmute myself. No problem. Lynn, can I suggest then that you just put your question in the chat and perhaps Scott can pick that up for you and we could relay that to the group if that's okay. Okay, so just having a little look myself.
Okay.
Have
Sorry,
you got
Selena.
a thought? Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to move on. So this second half is about what makes good application and some of the reflections. So I think everyone here is quite clear that this is an amazing opportunity which has not really been open to local authority colleagues before. So myself, Rachel, and some of the others were part of the first cohort of PWAFs. I didn't consider, from my personal perspective, I didn't consider everything in my application. I did make some mistakes, so that even though I was awarded the funding, there are some things I would improve looking back. So, for example, I included little to no cost for public involvement, and that's something that I would change if I did it again. So you need to consider everything. I was lucky to have the best supervisory team that I could possibly have. They've been amazing, and I think we were talking before about identifying those people, and it's key to network again. I think it was Faye that said earlier, there is this constant tussle between work and your fellowship. So being strong and having that clear demarcation between the two is really important. I did apply and justify doing a full master's in my PLAF, but that placed extra pressure on me. And there are colleagues being sent to me who have been identified as wanted to do a master's in their CPD. This is not a route to doing a full master's, it's a route to developing practitioner academics. If you do a master's as part of that and that's part of your development, then that's fine, but this isn't a way of getting a fully funded master's. I've already said that there's a growing community around this. So for example, I don't know if Nick or Charlotte are here. They were both PLAFs and they're now DLAFs working in social work in Manchester and Sheffield. And they've published this really worthwhile read if you are considering applying about their experiences. You've already heard from the brilliant Rachel. She's on the Your Path in Research website from the NIHR as a case study. Brilliant worth a read. The application and assessment processes, they run annually and they must be done through RMS, the NIHR system. Local authority colleagues, you will never have experienced anything like this in your life before. I can tell you that now for a start. It is difficult to navigate to start with. You get used to it, but you need to give yourself time to learn the system. Application windows, we're normally talking about 8 weeks long. To do a good application, you really need to be planning well in advance. Hemera, I didn't know you'd done your PLAF in 3 weeks. I think that's incredibly impressive. I think mine took about 4 months. It is possible, of course, to do it in a very short period of time, but the longer you've got, the better. So start planning. If you are going to go for the March deadline, you really need to be planning and working that up now. And then there's detail about the selection committee there. I'm not going to go through all the points on each of these slides as I go forward. I haven't got time, but you will get the slides afterwards. If I pick one out from here, your application does need to be informed by appropriate public involvement work. So that's really important. If you are going to go for 28th of March, that's something I'll be proposing you need to do now. Your training plan needs to be bespoke to you and tailored to you. This is probably one of the few times in your career when you're doing these applications where you're talking about you. When we normally doing funding applications for, I don't know, Sport England or social work or whatever, you're talking about a program, we're talking about how we are going to do something, the team that you're in, the organization that you are in. This is about you. You need to talk about you. It needs to be tailored to you and your development. Again, not going to go through all these, but there are chair reports from the previous committees that you can go and see what made the strongest applications, what made the weakest applications. That's round 2. Some of the feedback from the strongest applications in round 2. There is now on the website for the PLAF window, there is a round 3 chair's report as well. So it's useful going to read those and taking on board those lessons. So pre-application, you need to know the process and the remit. Contact the Academy with queries. We've already spoken about the RSSs. So you've got the RSS hubs, you've got the 2 specialist centres for public health, you've got the specialist centre for social care. Those colleagues are represented on the call today here. So contact those for support. I've just mentioned about starting your PPIE or your PICE, your public involvement work essentially, or resident involvement as we might say in local government, early. So if you're going to go for a PLAF, you need to be doing that probably January or early February. This should not be an afterthought. Look up previous award holders, know about the panel members that you're going to be basically appealing to, and talk. Speak to your supervisors, current award holders, academics, methodologists, etc., etc. Common weaknesses: failure to show that you're in remit and that this benefits, and some of this is taken from NHS language, so that talks about patients. Obviously, we're talking about residents and the public. It needs to be clear and be detailed, and applications are sometimes over-ambitious. This is a development program building up to your DLAF, potentially your ALAF afterwards. So it's exploratory work that needs to be done, scoping. It just can't be too high risk, essentially. There's something about the applicant, of course. You need to be at the level that you're applying for. This needs to be part of a journey. And I've already said about the training program, it should be bespoke to you. This is about you. Public involvement. I think I've already said this about 5 times, haven't I? But this is about involving people from the outset, collaborating, being meaningful. It needs to be costed appropriately as well, but within your bid. So NIHR has got a standard guidelines on payment for involving public, and the hyperlink is there. So when you get the slides, you'll be able to click on that and go through to them. Equality and diversity, NIHR has got a strategy which your application needs to consider and ensure that you are in line, enhancing the EDI aspect of research. So in summary, if you want to go for the window for the pre-doc in March this year, get started now, basically. Know the guidelines, criteria, get all the advice, criticism you can whilst preparing the application. This is about you. Say it again, it's one of the few times where you talk about you and developing you. And learn from others. Hopefully you've heard from our experiences today. So take those on board in your application. Definitely consider all your costs. The thing is, once your application goes in, you can't go back and ask for more money. So you need to consider all those costs from the outset and get them right. And appreciate that sometimes difficult, especially in kind of an ALAF where you might be applying for 5 years. But at least in a PLAF, you're only doing a year, 2 years, 30 months. So hopefully you can have a decent foresight of what you need to cost. And pay attention to detail. That's the last slide there. That's Mal's email address. These slides will be shared afterwards. There's also a hyperlink to our website as well there. So we've got a little bit more time. I can see there's a whole lot of more questions in the chat. So I'll hand back over to Selena, and we've got 20 more minutes for questions. I'll go back to answering in the chat, and thank you, Selena.
Thank you, Scott. I think, Pat, you had your hand raised if you would like to take the first question. And then I see, Claire, you've just raised your hand, so you will be next. So over to you, Pat, please.
Okay, good morning, all. I've got 2 master's degrees, which I kind of acquired about 15 years ago. So about 5 years ago, I did my level 5 in health and social care and diploma in leadership as well. I just need to speak to someone to kind of guide me as to which of the categories I could do and all of that. And because I'm in the course of doing my 2 masters, I majored in young asylum seekers / refugees and housing and social services input and all that. So I just need to speak to someone, because sometimes you're just confused. You don't even know where you're going. So it'd be nice for me to speak to someone so they can, guide me and all that.
Thank you, Pat. Could one of the panel members respond, please? Thank you.
I would say speak to Mal would be the right person to discuss. I don't know if anyone else has any other sources of support, but
yeah, I think for the starter, Pat, it's what your question is and what the research question you want to answer, and that will kind of tell you whether what you've done in your 2 masters is enough experience and skills to either go straight to the DLAF or do a PLAF, or there's that bridging one, which is quite if you've already got a master's, that bridging one might just be the bridge between where you are now and the DLAF. So it's really about thinking about what question you want, what you want to answer, and also speaking to people in your local authority, because I think it's really important that you build up. You need a team. You need that support in your local authority as well as your academic partners. It's a big undertaking. So you definitely need that local support. To consider that. So the first thing is, right, kind of what your research question is and what we're thinking of doing. That would be my guidance. It's not a gold standard answer, but that's just my thoughts.
I'm going to sound a bit negative here. I think, you know, we've got over 100 colleagues on here. I'd love to do one-to-ones with all of you, but I simply can't. I think you need to consider the wider support in the system that's available. So the RSSs, academic colleagues, it's simply impossible for me. I've got a day job to do, developing a HCRC. Yeah, the advice colleagues have already said about other people who can support, I think is useful.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Claire, I think you're next, and then Scott. I don't know if there's anything from the chat you want to pick up. Actually, Jen, I've just seen your hand, so we'll go back to Claire and then Jen. Thank you.
I think mine's actually a really similar question, to be fair. I'm a social worker. I'm just doing a level 7 apprenticeship in senior leadership, which will then go into an MBA. So I've just started thinking about what to do next. I will have a research project for 6 months as part of the MBA, and then possibly looking at doing something in this line after that. Is that kind of the right pathway to take it?
I think I don't mind coming in. I think it's totally like individual. I think if like I'll just tell you, my PLAF application is vastly different in terms of detail to my DLAF application, in that at the PLAF stage I had an idea of the topic I wanted to look at, but it was like there was a bigger focus on developing my research skills, knowledge, experience, sort of more academically, and developing that topic that I wanted to look at, so that I used the PLAF to do a lot of literature searches, networking, to really understand that topic area and where the gap in knowledge was, so that I could then develop my PhD proposal. So my DLAF application was much more specific. It had the research question, it had the methods I'd use, it had the collaborations, it was very, very detailed and specific. So I think it sort of depends how you, in terms of what you're currently doing and the progress you're making, sort of at the end of that, where you feel you are. And if you feel like, you're equipped in skills and knowledge to do a PhD, and you've got that identified research question, then put in for the DLAF. If not, if you think, well, I'm part way there, then look at the PLAF or the PLAF bridge. So it's really individual, but I couldn't have put in the DLAF application that I did if I hadn't personally have done the PLAF. I wouldn't have been ready, with all that information and specificity, of the project. So, but other people might, if people have already done masters in the past and have that research area identified and everything, then going straight for that sort of level would be appropriate for them. So just pitch it for where you feel you're at. But having done bits of courses or programs before will certainly strengthen your application.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you both. Jen, I think you're next.
Hi, just want to say thank you so much for everyone taking the time out to do this question and answer and give all your experience. It's been really helpful. I've just got a really quick question, which is there a number of awards that you want to give each year? Because obviously you've put how many, but if there's an allocated amount, so for example, if there's so many applicants, but you're only ever going to give 3 out, or is it sort of more open than that?
We wouldn't know the answer to that, Jen. We don't work for the Academy. So from my experience of sitting on public health research programme, and that's a different programme for NIHR, everything we've always recommended to DH to be funded has been funded in my experience, but that's a different programme. So I don't know if there is a set budget for this.
I can just say that I have been told that the budget allocated for this and the number of applicants coming in, it's currently under spending, but obviously it's early stages and they wanted more applications to come in. So currently where it is, because the budget's there, if applications are coming in that are fundable, so meet that quality threshold and everything else, they're being funded. I know with some of the other like NHS and clinical fellowships and things, they're so well established that a lot of people can end up applying and have a project that's fundable but doesn't get funded because of the volume of applicants. But we're not at that stage at all with the local authority ones yet.
Of course, if everyone does what,
That's really
does what Hamira does and puts the chief executive salary in there, then we might struggle in future years.
Just to say, I did not do that.
You're on mute, Selena.
Thank you, Scott. Haroon, I think you've got a question if you'd like to go ahead. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Sorry, my Zoom keeps like dipping in and out, so it might cut off. But it was just a quick question. I'm currently on a graduate scheme, so it's a 2-year graduate scheme at the council. I am undertaking like a level 7 qualification as well, which is only 20 credits, so it's not too full on. So I'm just wondering if these opportunities are kind of open to me as well, or is that something I'd have to take up with my organization itself? Because obviously I'm on like a 2-year contract, with the hope of it obviously getting extended into a permanent role. But is it more beneficial probably to wait off until I'm in a permanent role, or is that just something I need to speak to my organization about, to be fair?
Haroon, the guidance is quite clear, and again, I'd recommend everybody kind of, if you're interested in this, there's so much guidance, and I'm sure we can include the links. They're probably on the presentation, to be honest. But as long as you have an employment contract, as long as you're employed by your local authority at the time of submission for your application, that's the basis that because I was in a fixed term contract when I applied for my PLAF, so, and it didn't stop me.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Haroon. Anne, I think, do you have a follow-up question there that you'd like to ask?
Yes. What's average like small charities like myself getting through? Because I've got a degree, but I've actually been running the service 16 years now. So I saw a gap, opened it, and I've been running 16 years. So what's chances of like organisations like myself getting through?
I think equally as eligible as anyone else, and I'd like to see more applications coming from that. I think to date it's been underrepresented, but I think that's simply a case of us needing to get the message out, which is hopefully what we're helping with today.
I would add to that as well, Anne, that I had almost a 20-year gap between being at university and doing my teacher training and going back to do a master's, and that wasn't a disadvantage at all.
Yeah, it's just that that's why I've come on it, because over years I've started collecting a lot of data because I've also lived experience. So I work with men, women and children out of domestic abuse, perpetrators, victims and children's behaviour. So I've had a lot over years, like even Oxford's been in and research with the families. And I think for our organisation, it'll be benefit for me to be able to do it, because we get a lot of data on, the backgrounds of families, whether the perpetrators, victims, and the children, generations of it. And I think we need to understand more about that continuous impact through generations. So I'm hoping I can get through. All I can do is try, because I'm coming from a different end of lived experience as well. we see things slightly differently when we're looking at, you know, planning and what can be put into practice and what's maybe needed as well. So it'd be better if I could research it to put it out there, because like I said, 16 years we've been going strong, and I get like over 400 referrals a year. So the success in as clients.
And I would definitely include that in your application, because I think that's a real advantage if you can talk about that lived experience and that angle that brings to your research.
Yeah,
I see that as
staff are.
positive.
Yeah, all the staff are. You know, I've gone through a program over years, have now joined, or some are actually on the board, because we don't hide what we've been through. But it's just that I need to learn how to put it academically for people to understand, and I think that's where I'm stuck. So I might fill a form in, but it might not sound right. So I obviously need that support around me.
Yeah, I think the research support service could be really helpful for you.
Right, thank you very much.
Also, because I don't know if you've got contacts with these colleagues, but Wakefield has been awarded a Health Determinants Research Collaboration. So they've got up to £5 million over 5 years to establish research infrastructure in the local authority. I don't know if there's any. Sorry, my parents live in Ackworth. I grew up in Ackworth, so I'm a Wakey person myself. But I don't know if there's any Wakefield Council colleagues on the call today.
I've got quite a lot of links, you know, with Wakefield. Like I said, I've worked in Wakefield a long time, so I worked with some quite serious cases, you know, under child protection and things like PLO or children in care. So I've got quite a lot of links with people in there, so I can speak to one. That's not an issue.
And if you put your email address in the chat, I will connect you with our HCRC.
You're a gem. That's a Wakefield word.
Thank you. I'm from Wakefield. I'm fine.
I'll put it in. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Great questions. Thanks, Scott. I don't think I can see any other hands raised. So Scott, I might just hand it back to you just to kind of wrap up, if that's okay.
Nothing more to say really, apart from good luck with all your applications. Unless any of my peers want to come in and say anything final.
Yeah, could I just say, not just good luck to everybody. I mean, the application process is brutal, and we've probably made that clear. It's full on, but it's absolutely 100% worth it. And if you feel like giving up halfway through, push through it. It's a really, really interesting opportunity, and it's worth it.
And when you are,
I would agree, and it opens doors and leads to things that you don't even anticipate. Like 2-3 years ago, I would never have dreamt I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So yeah, well worth the investment of time and effort for the application.
And when you are finding this brutal, as Faye rightly said, it's genuinely brutal, and you will have moments of doubt and everything. Speak with your colleagues, your academic supervisors, and get the further reassurance from them. That's partly what they're there for. They've heard it all before, they've experienced it all before. So lean on them for support.
Yeah, I would just echo everything that everyone said, and it's an amazing opportunity. It is brutal, but I believe you, if you ever do another application again, it will be a walk in the park. It raises the bar of your resilience in terms of applications. You'll think any other application is so easy. But yeah, and also get support if you know, from your local authority, or if you're in a charity, from colleagues, you know, build that support network. You know, it's great to collaborate and bounce ideas off, and you need to continue doing that through that journey. So just build up that team around you, and don't be afraid to ask and get people to look through things for you, because someone will always bring in a new perspective and something you haven't thought of.
Can I just round off just thanking everyone for coming today, and thanking all of our speakers. We'd be really interested to hear if there are any other sessions that people would find useful, and can encourage you to contact the Research Support Service, who can really provide you with that one-to-one help for your applications. Thank you very much.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Alex, do you want to stop the recording?